Today, March 8th, is International Women's Day. International Women's Day is a global day to recognize the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. The day also marks a call to action for accelerating women's equality. International Women's Day has occurred for well over a century, with the first gathering in 1911. This year, we want to highlight some impactful women and their achievements. Let's first take a look at the life of Katherine Johnson, a mathematician who played a key role in several NASA missions during the space race. She was hired as a mathematician in 1952 at NASA, where her and her colleagues computed flight trajectories used by engineers. Despite being segregated to the black-only section of the Langley Research Center, Katherine was recognized for her outstanding work and ability. As a black woman working for NASA in the 1950s and 60s, Johnson overcame many social boundaries and racial discrimination. Many of NASA's first milestones could not have been reached without her. Katherine Johnson demonstrates the ability of women to persevere through discrimination and pushback, finding ways to thrive in any environment. Another significant female figure in STEM was Rosalind Franklin, a scientist who is now known for discovering the double helix structure of DNA in 1952. She studied at Cambridge University but was not allowed to graduate as a woman. Because of this, she had to work for the British Coal Research Union. Although this is not an ideal workplace, she made remarkable discoveries about coal, which Cambridge recognized and finally awarded her with a PhD. She unfortunately passed away from ovarian cancer in 1958. Her death is most likely linked to her constant exposure to X-ray radiation in her research. Her research and DNA discovery were later claimed by Maurice Wilkins, Francis Crick, and James Watson in 1953. Shortly after her death, the three men were awarded a Nobel Prize, claiming her work for their own, and her scientific contribution went unrecognized for over 50 years. Rosalind's life demonstrates the value of diligence even when we are faced with injustice and rejection. We are proud to celebrate her achievements in science today. Many are aware of the prominent female figure Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was an American lawyer who served as the second female Supreme Court justice and was an important activist for women's rights. Today, we decided to share some fun facts about her life that confirm the influential woman she was. Before her days as a judge, she acted as general counsel for the American Civil Liberties Union, where she argued over 300 gender discrimination cases. Until the 2018 term, Ginsburg had not missed a single day of oral judgments, not even when she was undergoing chemotherapy for pancreatic cancer, after surgery for colon cancer, or the day after her husband passed away in 2010. Ginsburg was also the first justice to officiate a same-sex marriage. Ruth lived a very impactful life because she wasn't afraid to speak against inequality. She has made changes that will now benefit people for years to come. Today, we celebrate the woman she was and all the lives she impacted. Another significant female figure was Flo Hyman. She was an American volleyball player who played professionally in Japan. Not only did Flo lead her team to a silver medal victory in the 1984 Olympics, but was also inducted into the Volleyball Hall of Fame. Aside from her accomplishments in sports, Hyman testified at Capitol Hill in Washington for breakthrough 1972 legislation that prohibited sex discrimination by athletic programs in universities. Sadly, Flo passed away in 1986 from a genetic disorder while playing a tournament in Japan. On February 7th, many of us celebrated National Girls and Women in Sports Day, which started in 1987 as a way to remember this Olympic volleyball player. Flo's life demonstrates that female athletes, while making strides in sport, can also advocate for women's rights and make a difference in society. Lastly, let's take a look at the amazing story of Malala Yousafzai, who made huge strides in girls' rights for education. She lived in Maghora, Pakistan, which was invaded by the Taliban in 2007. At just 11 years old, Malala spoke against the Taliban and their destruction of girls' schools. During this time, under a fake name, Malala began writing regular entries for BBC Urdu about her daily life. She wrote 35 entries for this news channel. This was a way for her to speak out against the Taliban and share what was going on with the rest of the world. On October 9, 2012, Malala was identified as the BBC blogger by a Taliban gunman. She was tragically shot in the head while she was en route home from school. She was rushed to hospital and thankfully survived this attack. After her recovery, she continued her fight for girls' education. On her 16th birthday, Malala spoke at the United Nations in New York. That same year, she published her autobiography entitled I Am Malala, the Girl Who Stood Up for Education and Was Shot by the Taliban. She was awarded the Prize for Freedom of Thought by the European Parliament for her activism, and in 2014 she was awarded a Nobel Peace Prize. Malala's courageous story can encourage us to stand up for what's right even when it seems impossible. Today, we honor her achievements and are so thankful for our education and ability for freedom in Canada. The campaign theme for International Women's Day 2024 is Inspire Inclusion. When we inspire others to understand and value women's inclusion, we forge a better world. And when women themselves are inspired to be included, there's a sense of belonging, relevance, and empowerment. Collectively, let's forge a more inclusive world for women and make DW Poppy a place where all people feel valued and respected. Thanks for listening, and happy Women's Day.